Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Extra Hours, part of the officehours.global network. You can find out how to join and get all connected with us at officehours.global/join. Today, we have a special panel where we're able to talk to about the I did a very amateur thing, and that was I have the YouTube playing. There it is. No. I've got it in multiple places. It's playing in my ear. And we've had a few people on our show that have talked about how difficult it is to talk when you've got like a 20-second delay of yourself being played back. And what I'm doing right now is continuing to listen to myself 20 seconds delayed. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, welcome to Alex Lindsay. Alex?
Well, the funny thing is somebody for WWDC, we've now done this. This is I believe our 5th year that we've done this, that we've done coverage of WWDC. So the 4th or 5th year that we've done straight. And somebody has done that, what you just did, in right. Every single, we almost never do it any other time. I did it the first 2 years because you're always worried about it going off or whatever. And it was, so there's something about WWDC that has us, I guess, worry or do something and open up YouTube to make sure everything's running, and then it's hidden under it. It's been the most common thing that we've had trouble with, and what thing I always warn people about when they're streaming to YouTube, because you open it up and you're waiting for it and you're trying to make it work, and then suddenly it appears somewhere and everyone's panicking about where is that coming from, especially when you're doing your own show. Yeah.
Well, and this was the thing is I had multiple browser windows open. I got two 4K screens. It's like try find that window. Anyway, the good thing is we've got the problem out of the way now, so the rest of the show we're all good. So we are talking about the Apple announcements that happened today at WWDC, the Worldwide Developer Conference for Apple, and we have assembled a great panel to talk about it. We've got Guy Cochran with us as well, regular here with us at Extra Hours, is going to look after the questions for us. Guy, you excited?
Yeah, that was a pretty sweet little show there. It's a little different than the intro tried to grab you. We got that F1, just really high energy intro. I was not expecting that at all. And then the cool little, I don't want to spoil it for anybody that didn't watch it, but the cool little solar panels flopping back. That was pretty slick, especially off the watch. It was like, ding.
Let's be clear. This is not going to be something that has no spoilers in it. This is a panel discussion that is full of spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, what are you doing? Go and watch it first, then come back and watch this. So joining us as well, we have CJ Koval. How are you, sir? Nice to have you.
Fantastic. This is a really exciting day across all the OSs for folks who use Apple in business. And so I'm really excited to get to share the evening reflecting with all of you about it, because I'm very excited about today's updates.
Yeah, that's great. Now, the cool thing is we kind of tie all this together. We didn't really say, like, Alex has been around forever and been to a bunch of keynote, in person and streaming and behind the scenes, and kind of as part of it, as well as Mac Break Weekly. You've been tracking this stuff for, since the Mac. Well, when was it?
I think my first keynote might have been 2005. I think 20 years ago. I think was the first keynote that I went to at WWDC. I think I actually spoke at WWDC in 2007, so I was there for that one too. so, and then I've been to a couple others between now and then. Yeah,
been to a few. Okay, so you've got that perspective. CJ works in IT, corporate IT, and has a bunch of Vision Pros that you're as part of the company as well as your own, and so there's kind of this whole angle that I'm excited about as well, that they've opened up a sort of enterprise for Vision Pro. So we'll get to that. Guys across everything that is anything that's production related has his finger on the pulse of all of that. Worked in retail, sold a bunch of stuff. You've worked on Macs for many years as well, right, Guy?
I was actually a reseller. So my former company, we were a reseller for a while there. We didn't hit the numbers. They got a little crazy there in about 2008, 2009. They were really pushing us to sell. And I couldn't keep up even with doing some. I thought they were pretty good numbers for a little guy, but man, you should have seen the paperwork that I had to fill out to become a reseller for Apple. It was hardcore.
Sure.
But yeah, I've been a trainer, Final Cut trainer for years, and Adobe certified expert. So I mean, back even in the '90s. So started out in the desktop publishing world. But I think Oliver is going to be the one that is going to be the shock and awe. He's probably got the most.
This is the thing. I'm filling out the context of the panel, right? I'm just an Aussie cat who is crazy enough to get up in the middle of the night to watch all of these announcements. I've been tracking Apple stuff and had a Power Books and all of that was where I started. So now let's get to our special guests. We have 3 special guests that makes a lot of sense as far as a developer, from a developer perspective, all friends of office hours. So let's start with Adam Tao, who is the developer of Mix Effect and Route Effect and a couple of other things. Actually, Adam, I wanted to ask you about that Crack app that you've got as well. You've got a few other little apps there as well, right?
Are you talking about Wipe My Screen?
Yes, Wipe My Screen. So cool.
Yeah, a little screen cleaning game and utility. It's great. So, but I was speaking of WWDC, I live only like 3 miles from Apple campus. Unfortunately, I did not get a lottery ticket, but I did watch the entire keynote with a group of Apple developers at Community Kit, which was just being held at a nearby hotel.
Nice. Well, that's cool. That's a whole nother perspective. So you could have put your ear outside and you might have just heard just a rumble from the especially when the F1 cars were going around.
Right. I actually ran from my house to the hotel, and I have to run by Apple Park. So I saw everyone lined up at the visitor center waiting to go in, and then they had closed down all the streets to vehicular traffic. So it was kind of neat.
So cool.
I got a taste of being at the keynote without actually being at the keynote.
That's really cool. So clearly, there's a lot. You've got a lot of experience with iOS, iPadOS, developing Mac OS, and you've even had a little play with Vision OS as well, right?
Yeah, the Vision hackathon. I did a quick little hack of Mix Effect running on a Vision Pro. Hasn't been released yet, but it gave me a taste for kind of like what the app might look like when using a Vision Pro headset. Very cool.
All right, so we'll continue along to Marcelo Moyano, who is from Stream Voodoo. We've had him on a couple of times, and particularly with a Vision Pro perspective, kind of cutting edge there. Marcelo, good to have you back.
Hey, good to see you. Thank you for the invite, Grant. And yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to chat. Yeah.
Excited
to
about
chat through
the Vision
all of this
Pro
stuff.
And of course all these new updates from Apple. We're good.
Yeah, we'll be able to dive into it. And so to finish out our panel, we have another office hours OG, really, is Oliver Breidenbach. Hello, thank you for getting up in the middle to be with us.
Yeah. Actually, I think we get an opening statement later, but my first Worldwide Developers Conference was in 1992, and I feel like you're working your way up the age ladder here. So I'm like, I might be the oldest person on this panel, so and that's kind of a scary thought. And our history with Apple goes back to 1977, actually. So using the first Apple computers back when they came out fresh from this, company in California.
What was the first thing that you developed on Mac?
I don't remember. It's like how old was I?
Was that special?
6, 7, 8, 9. But I clearly remember the pivotal moment with the computers where I figured out how to do how the algorithm would work to make a maze. So and that's kind of like whoa. At the age of maybe I don't know, 10, something like that, and yeah.
Fair
say
enough.
my first to totally geek out, or my first I can remember my first app from Apple, the Apple II was that I was playing Dungeons and Dragons, and I was a dungeon master, and I had to make all these non-player characters all the time, and they were all constantly getting killed. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't want to roll any more dice. And so I just made a non-player character generator. I thought it was just so magical that I wrote something once and then just hit a button, and it would just print out a new character. So that was, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna take over the world with this.
It sounds like AI now. Just
exactly.
It was generating. So let's look at a couple of the first of all, some of the major themes that across the whole thing. One of the things was about 26. Well, now version numbers all 26, which I guess is easier to track. Any thoughts on where we have this, Oliver?
Yeah, I think one of the things that strikes me, I'm like, I didn't get excited about Apple keynotes on the Worldwide Developers Conference for a couple of years. And last year was the first one that, rekindled sort of like interest in what's going on. And this year, the striking thing compared to like maybe 5 years ago is that they really try to make everything across all the platforms. And that's something that wasn't there before. They made things that only were available on the iPhone. They made things that were only available on the iPad. And on the Mac side, you actually, kind of got the breadcrumbs from last year. And this has changed. And I think the version numbering is sort of a reflection of that, is that they see this as a more of a ecosystem that spans the entire product range, and that it makes sense to have the version numbers reflect that.
Yeah, I mean, that makes a lot of sense, and I think that where we're seeing the change, because the other kind of big announcement across all of it was the unified new design language, and liquid glass was this thing that they termed.
Well, and I do think, to your point, that it kind of makes it kind of pulls them all together. They're all part of one operating system, or they're all versions of that, probably more so than they ever have been. And they've been doing this for a while. I mean, they've been moving all of these things together for the last decade. So, making them a little bit more. I think this is the biggest jump that the iPad made towards the Mac. The Mac's been kind of moving towards the iPad for quite some time. It looked like the iPad kind of did a huge leap towards being a computer. So that was a interesting piece of the puzzle as well.
I could talk about this specific thing. I could talk about days, because it's sort of like, why is there now a Mac OS competitor of that Apple makes? And I'm like, I don't get it. They should just, add touch to Mac OS and run Mac OS on the iPad already.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah.
And we've got a whole generation of employees, like new employees that we're hiring now that are in their 20s, are coming in and they don't understand. Like, I'll say, okay, well, move that to your desktop. And they go, huh? Like, there are people who are entering the workforce right now who don't understand computer conventions in the way that we do. And so it's very useful to say, okay, you're used to this iPad interface. Let me empower you to be able to be more productive. And there are going to be another class of people who don't need a whole computer. And so this is a way for them to help bridge that gap a little bit. Purely from a support perspective, I think it's very powerful for when I'm bringing on a new frontline support employee, that now they don't have to think about, Mac's on 8.15 and iPhone's on 18 and watches on, it makes it a lot more streamlined when you're supporting it from an enterprise situation.
Totally. Adam?
Yeah, so I see this as kind of like the grand unification of Apple operating systems when they switch to the basically the car year model number system. But then coming to Oliver's point about the iPad, I installed iPadOS 26 on my iPad mini, 6th generation, just a few minutes ago. And I noticed that split view and slide over, which were two of the other types of multitasking that they had, are gone. So you basically only get the full screen window, one app at a time method, or the multi-window method with Stage Manager. I think that's still there. And so the way I see it is like, again, for simple people, maybe like for my parents, the single window is the way to go. But then if you want more power, you could turn on this other mode that gives you kind of Mac-like, a Mac-like windowing system. And it remains to be seen. We'll find out over the next few months if this new windowing system really is better. From first glance, it does look better than Stage Manager, but I only played with it for a couple minutes before the call.
And I think Apple also has a lot of data around what people are using their computers for, and I think that when you look at people who buy MacBook Airs and how they use them, it's a soft there is a soft line between the MacBook Air and the iPad, like of the use case, of why are you using, I would go the other direction from what Oliver said, which is that why are you using an Air when you could use an iPad? Well, the problem is being able to have multiple windows. There's a handful of apps, but I think Apple is making the case. I think there's some point where power users are using MacBook Pros and above, and everybody else. When I look at a lot of other people, I just really feel like what they're using it for, the iPad almost works except for that split screen or single screen is just it's not enough for what they want to do. But we're getting really, really close to where many people that I know, and including me most of the time, I mean, I have to open up a real version of Photoshop and Motion on the road. Those are the big things that hold me on to. That's why I have a laptop. So almost everything else I can do on my iPad, and I vastly prefer it. I think the problem with touchscreen is that the Mac interface isn't built for it. And I think that when I put a touchscreen, you can do it. You can make a touchscreen. You can buy one and make it so that you can touch the screen. It's a truly painful experience. Like it is like I can touch it. I can do it. But when I put touch screens on a Mac, the screen monitor in front of me right now is that way, and I try to use apps, it's not a good experience just because of the resolution isn't there, of my finger. So I think that they're creating this kind of new experience where you don't need that mouse to technically to do it. But I do think that there's, at least for some generation, there's going to be people who still need the Mac to do what they're doing. And I think that still is kind of a power user thing, but I think they are looking at probably 80% of the population probably could use an iPad, and so I think and it's far more secure. It's far easier to use. It's far less open to viruses. It's, that type of thing. And Apple, I mean, fundamentally it's better business for Apple too, because, it's not an open app system. So for now, it looks like it might have to open up a bit more.
I remember when Steve Jobs did an interview. I think it was with Watt Mossberg back in 2009, I think it was, where he spoke about, actually it was after the iPad came out, and he was explaining this concept about computers being like trucks and cars, that comparison he made, I remember. And he said that good computers and powerful computers will become those trucks. And he said that it was an uneasy thing to digest, but it will, turn over time into different devices that you use today. And he was saying that the iPad was going to be fitting in a lot of people that are not used to use these supercomputers or computers that are powerful, that it will be tailored for certain people. And then you have these iPads that will be for much broader audiences, and especially kids coming and growing. I remember, I have 3 kids, right? So my oldest boy is Pedro. He's 14 now. But I remember when he grabbed an iPad in 2010 and I gave it to him, and he used it like no questions asked, like nothing to read. He just unlock it and goes and plays and does, he did whatever he wanted with it. That was very powerful to me. Like seeing my son using it, no issues. And, it's not the same as a computer. Like Alex says, it's a different vibe.
I think part of that is the single app experience that a child has. If you have a bunch of windows that are all overlapping different apps, that's a very different, confusing experience. Adam, you brought up about not like slide over going away. Specifically for Mix Effect, I know I use that with your app, where I might have something else going, like a QLab or something else that I'm running. I swipe over, I make a change, I swipe it back. You know, like what implications do you think that has for you as you're developing your app?
It remains to be seen. I mean, they've improved multitasking, so you could have like any number of windows. There may be a limit depending on which iPad you have, but in my brief, test, I had like 5 windows open, and Mix Effect was just like running right there, and it seemed to stay open. I do have this feature in the app that's like run in background, which uses the picture-in-picture, got a little pop-up window, and it keeps Mix Effect alive in the background. Apple did announce kind of like continuous background processing for iPadOS 26, but that seems to be limited to discrete operations like an export or an upload or a download. It didn't seem to be meant for like continuous network activity. So I think that my little hack, you could say, running background will still be used, or people will just use it in window mode, and maybe like they'll move it half off the screen, so it's still there, but like it's out of the way.
Interesting. What do you think about the glass, whatever they call it? What do they call it? Liquid glass.
Liquid glass.
Does that's more of a global interface thing? It's not necessarily something that you try to build into your app, or what do you think, Adam?
Developers can take advantage of the liquid glass, so there's additional modifiers that you can add to your app. So obviously they'd be only specific to iOS 26, iPadOS 26, and so forth. I think I will do a build and recompile to see what the app looks like, but there's going to be some work that needs to be done on all developers to kind of adopt everything. So for instance, the icons, they introduced this new app called Icon Composer, which allows you to create the layered icons. So they're saying like use like 2 to 4 layers to your icons, give it this kind of glassy look, and then that will look really good on the on the new operating system. So I think developers will have some work to do, but they're trying to make it somewhat easy, so you don't have to do too much rework. But again, it remains to be seen. Once I build and recompile, it may look completely out of inconsistent, and then I'll have a lot of work to do.
Oliver, is that the same for you? As in, you wouldn't move too far away from Mimo Live, your interface. You kind of have a consistent interface. You don't want to change that too much, but do you tweak it a little bit to match the OS?
So I think if I understood what was being said in the second keynote they did today, the State of the Union, which they broadcast to everyone on YouTube, so I think it's okay to talk about it, is that I think if I didn't misunderstand it, they hinted that they would make developers, force developers to use that new interface by macOS 27. So well, looks like we don't have a choice then other than to make the switch. Adams is right. Usually it's not too much of a pain to just move to the default setup, but everything comes back. So the glass thing is like something that Windows Vista had in 2006, I think, and the glass effect is in Mimo Live since 2009. We have this tinted glass.
As a quartz composer effect or something.
Yes,
was it?
yes. No. It's we actually had to make our own shaders to do this, but it's. I mean, it's been around, so it's nothing really new. But it looks really nice. I must say that. And there's certainly some interesting concepts, UI-wise, where they actually, my biggest concern with the current iOS is that it's not disclosing functionality good enough. So you really have to know what features are in there to be able to use them. You can't easily discover them. And it seems like they've addressed part of that with this fluid thing where they, you tap on something and suddenly it becomes a whole bunch of things that you can choose from. And this liquid sort of concept they've put behind that seems a good idea. We have to see how well it works in real life, but yeah.
So another one of the key. Sorry, Marcelo, was it?
No, it's fine. I was going to say something, but it's okay. No worries.
Oh, but now I won't be able to sleep tonight thinking, what was Marcelo going to say? That might have been game changing.
Well, no, the thing is, like, if you create apps, and Alex knows this, right? If you create apps for macOS and iOS and iPadOS and visionOS and tvOS, how many OSs I just count, right? So I don't know if people is aware, but until today, that icon composer is a pretty big deal, because icons are all different in all platforms, and if you do multi-platform, you need to adapt to every single one of them. It's a lot of work, and I think that Apple is trying to get things simpler for developers to be able to produce these apps and make them, a unified process. Once you create a multi-platform app, now everything will be seamless, and that's what I really like about this new approach. The liquid glass is going to be applied to all the Apple platforms. That you're using your iPhone and you can connect it with your Vision Pro, and it connects to your iPad, and you can answer your phone on the iPad or on the Mac. There's a lot of synergy between devices. You better have a cohesive UI experience across all of them, and that's what's coming. And those who compare with Windows Vista, I get it, the comparison, but it has nothing to do with it. Like, not at all. It's like a million years in difference in terms of quality, fluidness, and UI interaction.
You just confirmed the reason for us to have developers on the panel, because, us non-developers are thinking about all these other, kind of commercial-facing things, and hear the developers going, "Oh, icon creator, that's amazing. That's going to be it's going to be game-changing. It's the icon creator."
On the other hand, having a second platform competing with macOS and the iPadOS is exactly the opposite. It's like this making more work for developers if there's no reason to not have an iPad app. And the differences between the Mac and the iPad are still big enough so that it's not easy to just, flip a switch and say, this app should run on iPadOS now. Yeah. The other way around, interestingly, I don't know if they now let iPadOS apps run on Mac. They do, certain iOS apps you can already run on the Mac. So, for example, the Mimo Remote app is something that we developed only for iOS, and you can just download it to your Mac and it runs. And it's going to be interesting to see if that is true for those new iPad app features as well.
Yeah, Adam, it requires a little flag to say that you allow it to work on Mac OS, right? You did that with Mix Effect, and it was kind of correct. Like, I remember when it first started, it was like, just go easy on it because it's a little bit different. There was a few little differences, right?
That's right. So there is that checkbox to just run the iPad version on Mac OS, but then you can also create what they call a Mac Catalyst version, which has access to some more Mac OS frameworks and APIs. And Mix Effect now is running that version. So it's slightly different from the iPad version, but it's largely the iPad version with a few little Mac OS flourishes in there.
Right. So another key sort of major theme was Apple Intelligence and AI, and kind of it looked like that across the board, it seemed to increase, but there was nothing mind-blowing, and it seemed the things that were the biggest changes around like image playground was now you can use ChatGPT to create the images. You know, that seems a little different as well. But
there was one really mind-blowing thing, is that they now allow developers to use the onboard LLMs from your apps, which is a big change. So it's just, this is going to be blowing up the use of AI in apps. We already have like a list of things for Mimo Life, which we want to do, and it's certainly right now it's a pain in the ass, as I have to hand off those things to ChatGPT on the web, and things like that, and
Oliver, can you explain that a little more? So you're going to be able to basically tie, whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude, directly into Mimo. Is that the the idea? Adam can.
That's not what the API allows you to do right now, but you can use the onboard LLM to do certain things, and basically you can do everything that the iPhone, everything that all the features that they have for their own apps, like auto completion, or the generative, making emojis or what they are called, whatever, and these kind of things, and the image playground and things like that. You can use that in your apps, and that's simply amazing.
Yeah, so the example that they gave in the state of the platform was you create an LLM session, and it uses the Apple Foundation models, and you give it a prompt, and you can actually write your own prompt, and then it could say, like, summarize this, and you give it the text and then some additional information in the prompt. And then you can say, I want a single response, or I want like a stream of responses, and then you get those responses and you display them to the users. So like Oliver said, this is going to be really big, I think, for developers. Even for myself, like I have another app on the Mac for filing messages into mailboxes in macOS Mail. And for the longest time, people said, can you help me auto-suggest mailboxes to file in based on maybe the subject line or the recipient or the sender or the contents of the email? And I said, yeah, that'd be nice to have. But then I was thinking, like, how would I do that? Do I need to go get an API key from ChatGPT and go through that method? But now, if the Apple Foundation models can, do it, I can say, just suggest the mailbox given the text of this email message, and here is a list of the user's mailboxes, and then I can just display those results back to the user.
Yeah, and I think like an automatic rule, right? Like an auto rule, making rules automatically.
Auto filing rule.
Yep. Well, and I think that where the Apple AI is doing is actually pretty strong is in a lot of these basic operations that require you to look through a lot of things and make some decisions. People keep on throwing the kind of the open-ended, like, do this thing for me or create these images, and it's not very good at that yet. But doing these kind of less, like I think that we're not very far away to what Adam's talking about, where I can say, and sometime about a decade ago, I talked to CJ or to Guy, and we were talking about cameras. Can you bring up those emails and just have it? It'll just go find those emails. Like, I don't have to search for Guy Cochran, and I don't have to search for CJ. I just give it a nebulous but somewhat pointed in the right direction, and it'll go and sort that kind of stuff out. And I think that it can probably do that pretty well right now. I mean, I think that what people keep forgetting is that AI is not, and this is where the pundits, I think, are very off. When they get into this, there's this whole thing about this is an existential threat for Apple, and Apple's got to figure out Apple intelligence. They got to figure out AI right now. You know what? They don't. They don't have to figure it out that fast. And this is not something, because they've got all this integration. Where am I going to go as an Apple user? I mean, I've got all this stuff tied together, on a daily basis. I use PCs for specific things. I have some Linux boxes for specific things, but they're not part of my like day-to-day, like how I live my life. And so the average Apple user isn't going anywhere anytime soon because it's all so tied in. It doesn't mean that Apple doesn't have to pay attention to Apple intelligence, but it's very different than Google. Google, it is an existential threat because ChatGPT, like I have cut my searches on Google by 95%, like that. You know, because I sit there with, I hit a button on my iPhone that says, and I just say, start chat, and I start asking ChatGPT things, and all the things that I used to Google when I was interested in something is now all ChatGPT, you know, and so that's kind of like a, you know, and then, you know, and we're using all these, and so Google has to, they're in the world where they don't own they don't own all the hardware. They're not selling all the hardware. They don't have the level of integration. They have to compete against all these AI models because Google has a lot of cute things that they work on, but let's be clear that most of their money is made from ads against those searches. Like that is and so if you've ever been to a Google event where they're like the top people who buy ads or whatever from Google, it's like looking into the sun. I mean, it's like the amount of money they spend on each person is insane. You know, it's at the Ritz, you know, kind of thing, you know, because and spared no expense at everything because that's where all the money's made. They experiment with lots of other things. They think about lots of other things, but that's where they make money. And AI is just spearheaded that, you know, like, you know, and so that's the real challenge. But Apple doesn't have that challenge. Like and I think that what I'm glad that we saw this time was that we didn't see panic. We didn't see, you know, they're adding some things into it. This is the AI response that we should have seen last year, which is that, hey, we're going to add a couple things in and we're going to do these things. They don't have to boil the ocean. We're going to add this stuff slowly. We're going to intelligently add some of the stuff on your phone that's going to be great for developers. Eventually, you're going to be able to go to a secure part of Apple, and then as a release valve, you're going to be able to go to this, you know, ChatGPT or whatever. And that is a great way to just kind of slowly bring it all up. But Apple has, it's not infinite, but I'll argue that they have 2 or 3 years to do what everybody else has to do in 2 or 3 months.
Yeah. And I don't want to mix up, I'm sorry, I don't want to mix up things, but I think it's also part of this strategy. You know, the developers, some news lately came up that you can actually build people outside of the App Store, and you don't need to, you know, you can do it without Apple and build customers. Have you seen a lot of apps doing that? I haven't. And I think, you know, if you ask why, it's because I believe that most of the developers are usually used to handle the percentage of Apple billing you, because basically it makes everything easier for you. And at the end of the day, customers are more secure. They feel secure about paying you whatever the service they need to pay. I don't want to mix subjects, but you know what I mean. That's the same feeling of AI. It's not going to be this massive thing. AI was, I think people was expecting today about listening to consumer announcements in terms of AI and how Apple is facing that. And this is a developer conference. This is not a consumer conference.
Now, back end team, can we just mute Alex because we can't get him going on about subscriptions. We'll lose an hour on subscriptions.
Okay. Sorry. Yeah.
No, it's totally true, and I can see that with where they're doing AI, that what they've said is it's privacy first. Because if they had gone out and said we're on the bleeding edge of AI and we're rolling it out on every device, there would have been uproar. And so they had to take steps back on that. You know, Adam, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I do want to point out that it's the announcements that they made seemed to me like a slight deflection or sleight of hand based on what they advertised last year. So, and even at the beginning of the keynote, Craig Federighi was saying, you know, all that personal context stuff that we showed last year, we're still working on it, and we'll have more to say next year. And if you look at all the kind of like the shortcut actions and the LLM stuff, it's all like you as a developer can use them, and then you can provide them to the users. But all this kind of like super intelligent stuff, we'll work on that, and we'll let you know later. I think the only thing that kind of hinted at that was the visual intelligence stuff, where you could take a screenshot of your screen and then like tap the or it would like show like a calendar entry, like add to calendar, or analyze like the picture and stuff. That's kind of the stuff I think they were trying to get to last year, but they're just making it available in a feature that they completely control. It's not something like developers can take advantage of just yet.
Yeah. And what do you think that Apple could do with this? Like, if you think about it, like, what? People will be able to create a movie with an iPhone and just making it in AI and just share it with the world and just do it in 3 minutes. I mean, is that what people expect?
Well, but I think
Apple to do in the AI world. You know what I mean?
But I think that because of WWDC, when we think about developers, Apple building the ability to do a lot of the AI on device means that as this is made more available it's not going to be necessarily as fast. It's not going to replace VO3, but what it is going to do is that suddenly more and more of these tools are made available to developers that are working on the device, where the user isn't paying more money and the developer isn't paying more money to use it. It's all part of the operating system that's available, and that's something that is not what everybody else wants to do. Their business model is based on you're paying them per month or you're paying them per usage. I mean, it's not insignificant. When Google starts charging, they're going to charge $250 a month for VO3. As we go into the September or October, after you get through the 125 a month that they're charging for it now. So the thing is, and as all this hardware starts to come up, the developers are going to have all these AI tools that they don't want to develop, and they don't want to pay ChatGPT for, and they don't want to pay all these. I mean, you guys can tell me, but I think so these tools are going to get better, but they're all on, many of them will be available on device or within a system that Apple is controlling, and that's part of what developers, it's part of the benefit of being a developer is not having to figure out how to do this on your own.
100%. And actually, when you use APIs for artificial intelligence, especially generative AI, it can get super expensive super fast. Like, I'm not even kidding. And just even with text and chat, I don't know if people here knows about these things, but handling API calls with AI, if you're like even coding or just getting up to speed on that, it can get really, really expensive really quickly. And imagine that with image generation and video generation, it's off the hooks. What they're doing right now is just trying to keep it like in a low cost so people can actually pay for it and just try to think about what they can do with it. But it is super expensive until GPUs get an easier way or an easier path. I believe that Apple will go into that realm, and that will be very exciting to see, right? Like, if you can really run things on device and have really high quality outputs just based on those use cases, that would be great.
Yeah,
so just to the people, sorry, Oliver, just for the people watching, we are, you can post questions. We are tracking those, and we're going to get to a couple of those in a minute. Oliver, last little chat on this.
Yeah, one thing also to consider is that if you use ChatGPT APIs, the trip from the device to the cloud and back is something for us. For example, in like live video production, is like that slows it down quite a bit. So and it's unpredictable. Talking to the machine learning stuff on the machine is usually much snappier. And there's no there's a slow internet connection and or things like that. So that's an added bonus on top of that. It's free and doesn't cost you any money.
Yeah.
So there was an omission, really, I think, which was Siri. It's barely mentioned at all, and it seems like something that's should be front and center, and the 26, like saying this 26 across the board, but then it's going to be like this offset of, well, when does Siri suddenly become a teenager and not a child? It's like it hasn't got there yet. But Guy, we've got a question related to that too.
All right, we got one in from Talak Lopez Waterman in Brevard, North Carolina, asking, I find all AI-generated voice to be very hard to listen to, and Siri being the most digital sounding of them all. Any word on a revamp of Siri's voice?
Well, and Alex, you were just talking about talking to ChatGPT, right? That's a big part of what you do.
Yeah, and I find that the ChatGPT one that I'm using, I find to be very pleasurable to talk to. Like, I find that voice is very just really easy to listen to.
Is it giggling? Have you got some giggles happening now?
There's no giggles. I don't have any giggles, but
we've had giggles.
Yeah, but I think that it feels like this matter of fact. I have kind of this raspy matter of fact woman that talks to me while I'm, like this is what it is, and this is how this works, and I don't know how you choose it. I don't know how it chose it, how that's the voice I have, but I'm like, oh, it's and I recognize it quickly. It doesn't. I have to admit, it doesn't bother me at all. I do think that Siri, what I like about Siri is that I know that I'm talking to Siri by accident instead of ChatGPT if I'm asking something. So I want Siri to be clearly Siri, just so that I know that I'm in the wrong place, because what I expect from Siri,
because she says, I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand. I'm sorry, I don't understand.
I don't ask anything. Here's the funny thing is, I don't have high expectations for Siri, so I'm not disappointed ever. I expect to be able to get the time. If I ask it for a Fahrenheit to Celsius conversion, I expect that to work. I expect it to play music when I ask for it.
This is what we found on the web for that. This is what we. This is what I found.
No. I don't.
No, but that's what you get when you do a calculation sometimes. Right?
Yeah. But it'll do the one that I hope for, but I don't expect, is that when I ask for a song, I won't get the live version. Like, why? Why would I want the live version? Like, unless I say live, why would you give me the live version of that song? Like, that is never what I want. And so, like, I want to watch a live version, I will go to a concert, but otherwise I never want to hear a live version. And so anyway, but Siri seems to always want to give me the live version. I'm like, how did the search engine, that part they don't even have working? So as a result, that's what I need. Timers. Siri is so good. I have a HomePod, like the big one, the original one. It sits in the kitchen, and I use it constantly for music and timers. And that's about it. And then everything else is ask ChatGPT. I'm going to ask ChatGPT. Someone who was watching MacBreak gave me a shortcut that I just push the button in it and say ask chat or start chat, and it just I'm in ChatGPT, and I'm sitting there talking. And I use it all day, every day, so.
TJ?
A word of warning when you're using the ChatGPT voice mode: if your custom instructions for ChatGPT for your profile say something like mine, where you say, be matter of fact, be concise, no nonsense, no flowery language, like kind of the try to make it less verbose mode in the text, it will translate that personality over to the voice. So if all of a sudden your voice mode stops being so friendly, it might be your custom instructions. It actually changes the tenor of the voice, which is wild. I think that the emission to go back to Siri, though, I think the emission from Siri was it was very loud. The lack of the discussion, and it almost sounds to me like they're going to say, hey, we're going to have improved voice interaction with ChatGPT, instead of saying Siri's going to have improved voice interaction with ChatGPT. It's just going to say, hey, now Apple Intelligence works better with ChatGPT over voice. So it's going to, we might see it fading away after the most recent hiccup.
Well, and I think it was in big part, a big part of the reason the stock fell is that from a consumer point of view, all they're caring about is, will Siri be better now? And no, nothing said there about that. And so it was like, it went down. Oliver?
The quality of life things are so powerful with Apple Intelligence. Like I went through my mail the other day, and I get into this habit where I check my personal email like quarterly, right? And there's just 1,000 emails of junk in there. And I go in, and I went into that little promotions tab in Apple Mail, and all of a sudden every USPS or UPS update that I got in the last month, when I deleted one of them, it deleted all of them. Like it grouped the emails together, and I was able to, it went through my inbox, found all the things that were like one another, gave you a bullet by bullet summary of here's what all of the different subject lines were. And if you want to just process them all at once, man, I felt like it was a rocket fuel. And if Apple could effectively communicate that they're focusing on quality of life, meaningful improvements with their implementation of these LLM technologies, as opposed to the flashy stuff, I don't know how you communicate that in a way that Wall Street's going to react. I know I deviated here, but like you got me fired up, because it's so, like, when I see the quality of life things is what really gets me excited.
Yeah, just look out, Adam. Message filer might get Sherlocked by mail with its own features, right?
Yeah, I have to install macOS 26 on a test machine to see if they've added that. Message 5 has been around for 17 years, so it's always been under threat of being Sherlocked. But to come back to the original question, it's like in iOS 18, Siri's voice did change because we have a car with CarPlay, and everyone in our family noticed that the voice sounded different from iOS 17, and it's for the worse. But to Alex's point about ChatGPT's voice, my custom voice, I think it's called Sky, uses a lot of conversation fillers. And I instructed her to not use things like ums and ers, and she kept on doing that. So I'm going to have to look into CJ's kind of custom profile prompt, see if I can put that in so that she doesn't say those, because it's very jarring to have the AI kind of talking to you like a human being, saying ums and ers every 2 sentences.
Bit weird. Oliver?
Yeah. Back to Siri. I think there's 2 points. One is that something clearly went wrong, when they tried to implement the things they promised for last year. And if I look back at the history of all the worldwide developers conferences I have been to, then something being absent only means that they, are cooking something up behind the scenes, and you can't do something like Siri in a year. So they might have, pulled the plug entirely and do something else. And I think we saw a glimpse of that actually with the shortcuts, because the shortcuts and the app intents is basically what's running in the background of Siri. So, in the end, Siri is simply a voice interface to what app intents and Spotlight is now doing, and I think that sort of shows you where this is going, and at one point they will just replace the text interface with another friendly new voice or something like that, and then they will be able to deliver what they promised.
Yeah, let's finish the Siri talk, and then I want to come to the shortcuts. Marcelo?
Yeah, no, what I was thinking though is the same thing. I think Siri, I think this is what people were suspecting, right? Like a super powerful Siri that will connect everything and anything within the Apple's ecosystem. And to the point that I was talking before, there were a lot of operating systems in this ecosystem that needs to be synced up. I agree with Oliver. The shortcuts and Apple app intents and all these things are actually setting the roadmap for Siri to eventually take over. I'm not sure if that's the case, but it will be, it is pretty hard if you think about it. Like all the devices connected, and Siri has to know everything about you and about your contacts and about all these things. I can't imagine all these privacy meetings, about and discussions about who sees what. I remember Craig Federighi talking about the photos being art. And if you take a photo and if something there and there was a water bottle there and somebody wants to remove it, that's fine. But it was against the philosophy of the photo that you just take. Who says that is an original photo when it was taken and all that sort of stuff? If that is a thing to discuss, you can imagine what that will be for Siri and knowing everything and executing things. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff to consider.
In all of these sort of debrief shows, we struggle to have a uniformed way of going through everything. So we'll start to now just jump around a little bit. So we're sort of moving now into Mac OS, because it seemed to be when they were talking about shortcuts and Spotlight, it was really centered around Mac, not necessarily iOS. Adam, you seem to have, with every app, it seems like you push really hard on shortcuts, particularly Mix Effect has lots of kind of the intents and the deep links and everything that kind of ties in shortcuts. What can you give an overview of what sort of the announcements were as far as shortcuts go?
Sure. There's a few things that they added to the Shortcuts app, including automations. So on iOS and iPadOS, you have personal automations like at this time, do this, or when I connect to Wi-Fi, do this. And those features were not in macOS up until macOS 26. So that's one thing, a big thing that they've added. And then the other one is within Spotlight, it's basically trying to take over things like Alfred or like Launch Bar, Raycast, these other little apps that you can like.
Things like that, right?
Text Expander, like these apps, you hit a keyboard shortcut and then a little thing pops up and you can type all this stuff. And so now you can run shortcuts within Spotlight, but it's not just a shortcut. You could actually run an action that has parameters. So you could, if I had in Mixeffect, say like change program output to camera 1, I could type like change program, and then it would appear and give me a little drop-down menu, and I can choose, all the cameras that I have on my ATEM. And it just hit return, and then it presumably would do that. What I don't think it can do right now is string together a bunch of actions in a single prompt. So that's where you'd still have to have like a shortcut that you run that does that. And I think, again, coming back to Siri and personal context, that's kind of where they want to go, but that's not where they're at right now. So kind of to throw a bone, they're like, okay, we can run individual actions that you define and within the typing interface.
Yeah, it seems like a shortcut within a shortcut as well, right? Almost this idea with Spotlight and being able to call on a shortcut very quickly, and then the idea that Spotlight would expose in-app kind of functionality as well, right? It was almost like going to the help tool and search, and then it would reveal, tool options or whatever.
Exactly. So another thing that they showed was you could just type like a menu command and it would appear in Spotlight. And one of the things that Apple tried to push developers to do last year with the 18 releases was to make every action within your app an app intent, so that everything is an app intent. You can do anything through an app intent. And if you expose them through Spotlight, then you'll be able to have them within Spotlight and in other places. And in the future, with personal context, they'll work with in that area too.
And I think,
Adam,
I think that we're going to I just think that we're going to get to a point where you're going to say, I want you to look at this thing, and then when this happens, I want you to do this. Or I want you to turn this thing on every time you see this thing over here, and you just explain it in terms. And the app intents are so important because it's like I want you to go do this one little thing, and if I don't have access to it, then I can't automate it. Like the app intents from a shortcuts and automation perspective is critical to being able to grab onto the thing that I want to grab onto, inside of that app, so that it will do the thing that I need it to do. And I think that's going to be, I think it's going to be so important, because you're going to be in plain English. You're just going to say what you want it to do, and it's going to build a operation that does that thing. And it might be that, turn the AC on when I'm, I want you to turn the AC, and there's things that do this now, but I want you to turn the AC on in the, when I'm 25 miles away from the house, kind of thing. And so that when I'm there, and turn it off when I leave. And those things are built into some of our features, but it's like when if I can just tell it that that's what I want it to do, I don't have to figure any of those things out.
Yeah, one thing I don't think is in the automations is app-specific triggers. So all the triggers in the automations are things that Apple provides, like time of day, the weather. Right. I don't know if it's the weather.
No, I'm saying this is where we're going. Like I think this is where we're at now. Like what I just said there is that's coming. I don't think it's here yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of the killing off of Automator as well, right? Like it seems like Automator and Script Editor are still just kind of sitting there behind the scenes, but really are being replaced by shortcuts.
Yeah, I think that was the intention. I think the hard part is that with all of them, I still feel like there's this place between shortcuts. There's a place between shortcuts and Xcode, which is a nodal interface that lets me decide what I want to do. Like I find shortcuts and Automator to be too linear. Like I just don't want it to be linear. I want you to give me just an open space, and I start adding nodes, much like Quartz Composer that Oliver remember, that I just want, but I want it to be for any operation that I would do with shortcuts. I want to be able to just take, just start connecting things and having all these things happen. And I really feel like that's every year I think Apple will get around to doing that. I just saw a streaming app that we're telling AWS to do this. There's a thing called Norsk that I just saw today, and it's all you can build basically for streaming. I have SRTs and all these other things. And I want to add some graphics and I want to do these other things. And then I want to stream it out this way. And you just build it into a nodal, it's like a nodal system to define that. And it's just such an easy way to think of, I don't know, it's like a mind map that actually can do something.
Yeah, I think if you look at make.com, that's exactly what you're looking for. But this is like a no-code web-based thing. And I noticed that, the shortcuts is now very similar in functionality to make.com. Only it's only missing like this nodal view instead of the table kind of code inspired view they do in shortcuts.
I think the problem is that the problem with not having the nodes is that you can't see it later. You can ask this thing in text and then it generates a bunch of things, but then I can't like think about it and look at it like a mind map. The reason you use a mind map instead of writing a paragraph is so that you can see it and think about what is actually happening. And that's what's missing for me inside of that. But of course, when I first started, and I understand people don't like nodes. When I first started using Shake, this is over 20 years ago, I was like, I don't even know how to render out of this thing. Like, this was so foreign to me. But once you get used to it, and then we built Conduit, which was a real-time nodal compositor. Once you got used to that, being able to just think that way, you kind of want everything that way. Like, you just want, like, I have a bunch of operations, and I want to define those operations in a nodal compositor. And whether you're using Unreal Engine or Blender or Maya, or all of us that are doing professional things have nodes everywhere. Color inside of the Resolve, Fusion inside of Resolve, all of those are node-based systems. And so all of us are kind of used to it, and you just feel like, it's such a great way to manage logic, is to say, because it's not like I want to do this thing, then this thing, then this thing. I want to do this thing, and I want to tell these 3 things what's going on, and then these 8 things what's going on, and that's what it's hard to, and then have this loop back into this, and that's those are things that I just feel like it's more advanced than shortcuts, but not as complicated as Xcode, and it's like a big open gap.
Yeah, that reminds me of Blender. Geometry nodes is an excellent example of that.
Yeah. So another announcement there talking about Xcode was, the ChatGPT built it directly into Xcode. Any observations or thoughts about that?
I was disappointed that it wasn't Claude. like ChatGPT is good.
Yeah,
as someone who writes,
it can be. You have the freedom to choose whatever you want.
Oh yeah, that's why I have to figure out how to.
It's not.
So what's the process of putting Claude into it?
That's not a. I haven't done it yet, but
that's
presumably you just set it up somewhere, then
if it's just a setup, then I'm fine. Then it seems like it'll make sense, because I think Claude's much more powerful.
You just have to put in your API key. It's like a drop-down interface. It's like add new LLM, and then you're off to the races.
Oh, awesome. Okay.
Yeah. And I think also, it's very cool. Also, ChatGPT helps you when you have Xcode open, and it will apply the changes in the code directly into Xcode, which is pretty neat. So they used to have that before this, right? But seeing Claude being part of that, I think it's also a great thing. I'm used to using Claude Max in the terminal directly, which is very powerful, but that's a completely different thing. So seeing Sonnet, or at least Claude, inside of Xcode is going to be very helpful.
So Oliver, there was Metal 4 announcements as well. Was there anything in that you're like, this is going to be a game changer for me in my life?
Nah, it's
no. Okay, good.
The new stuff they put in there is not directly, it's the optimizations and things like that. Probably the things that give us the most benefit. But in terms of graphics computing, we do actually don't use that much in Meme Life. It's mostly handling of textures, and that is already working. So and we have to wait for the details to see what Metal 4 changes. But I think like things like frame interpolation, I don't know if we can use that beneficially in Meme Life. Maybe we can. Maybe we can just upscale 60 frames per second to 120 using frame interpolation in Metal. I don't know. We may have to see.
That's kind of that was Mac OS mostly. There was all the gaming stuff as well, but I think we can leave other people to comment about that.
I feel like I always feel like Apple just keeps on trying to get this game thing to work. Like they keep on trying to pick that game lock, and they've used most of the picks so far, and nothing's turned the lock. They are still like, and I have to admit, maybe I'm in the wrong space, but I just feel like, and I think part of it is Apple's resistance to things like first-person shooters. Like inside of the thing, like they have lots of fun little games, but they're kind of goofy. Like from a perspective of someone who plays, like I play basically only 2 types of games, and so I admit that my version of this is very limited, which is I play tower defense games and I play first-person shooters. And I have only played those 2 for 25 years. So I have very little. Like I look at the other games, I'm like, it's cute. Like kind of. And I've played, like I go through and I play them, and like Cricket Through the Ages was kind of funny. So my son and I played it for a little while, but it didn't stick. Like it was just kind of like I played it for a couple of weeks, and then that was it, and it was a little gruesome. But if you've ever played Cricket Through the Ages, it's much worse than it sounds, and so. But I think that Apple's I think they want us to want to play. They want us to want to play games that no one is playing, like that don't require, like PC. The big PC gamers are playing these pretty heavy duty games, and that's what's driving, I think, a lot of sales and interest and energy. And all these other games that are in arcade, you're like, you play them a couple times, you go, oh, that's cute, and then you go off to whatever you were doing.
Yeah, Apple is using those heavy duty games always to showcase like what the graphics can do, but they don't. I mean, the thing is, these heavy duty gamers, they really invest a lot of money in the graphics cards and the high end graphic cards. I think that of the Mac is good, but it's not that good, and like.
Maybe I think that as we look at the M5, coming down the road, the M4 and the M5, I think that Apple, if an app was written from the ground up, not using the libraries that these other games are using, but written from the ground up to take full advantage of the GPU and the CPU, I think you get some pretty interesting outputs, out of it, with a lot of RAM and everything else. So I don't think it's impossible, but I do think, yes, and when people are spending, $15,000 on that.
Not even close. Not even close.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, I'm playing. Just a side note, right? I'm playing Cyberpunk 2077. That there behind me, it's an RTX 4090 in a PC, right? I play Cyberpunk 2077 using Vision Pro. Has the viewer, right? With an ultra wide screen on the Mac screen, using another app that allows me to have this ultra wide, incredible size screen to play Cyberpunk 2077. So I feel like I'm in that world today.
How are you doing that? What is that machine behind you?
It's a PC. It's an Intel i9.
You brought it up. I was going to say, can you move that thing that's in the back of your shop and at least put, some sort of Apple device behind there? But how are you? What's the workflow? You're screen sharing somehow, and
right. So there's an app that allows you to basically stream from a PC. It's the same app that you can use in order to use GeForce Now. When you use that service, that cloud gaming service. But in this case, you use it from your own PC. and you stream that to the Mac, and you use the Vision Pro and the Mac Virtual Display to make it like super wide.
That's
and
cool.
You play there, and it's crazy. What I want Apple to do, and this is on my wish list, is that they allow you to use the Apple display, the cinema mode for the Mac display. We can watch inside of the theater our Mac display, and we can watch whatever the heck we want inside of that theater. Thank you. So anybody's taking note, like, please write that down. And that's one of the best features ever. It's great. I mean, if you know how to use those things, I think it's very compelling. But that's the future also of gaming. People really love giant screens to see things and feel immersed and feel like they're there. And I think that that is in that direction with the Vision Pro, and combining for now with the PC. You can also do it with a PS5. They have some compatibility with new PSVR controls, but that's another thing.
Mm-hmm. So onto iPad, we spoke about the windowing system, a bit of the Files app, and preview. That's good. Preview on the iPad. Yeah, it's good for PDFs and, you know, pulling up a PDF and drawing on it with a pencil. That all sounds pretty straightforward. But possibly the most exciting thing for us, is at least at office hours, as we're thinking about media production or podcast production, is this next question, Guy.
Kadoki in Toronto, Canada asks, thoughts on the double-ended recording on iPad, and do we think it's in macOS as well?
Alex.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's in macOS or not, but I can say that for doing it on the iPad, this is a game changer for a lot of us. This is going to be the kit that we build to send out to folks, is an iPad. You know, if I can get a $329 iPad and I can pair that up with an MV6 or something similar to that, and send that out and go, all you got to do is, you know, it may have a little stand for it, and you put it on the stand and you have the mic there, and that's the connection, and it's going to record it locally and then, you know, send it to iCloud. It's a big deal. You know, like for a lot of people doing, you know, podcasts, that's going to be a huge deal of being able to just quickly, you know, add that together. We'd have to send the stuff that we would need probably to get an Ethernet connection, which can totally be done. But it just makes it so easy for you to grab onto, and especially for folks who are politicians or, you know, researchers that get called on to CNBC or other things like that. It's going to be really easy for them to get that stuff back to them. And I think it will pick up, you know, like, so, and it won't work for everybody who's trying to do it live. This doesn't change live at all, but it does allow me to have a live show. What I'm looking at is, you know, the problem that we have right now is that Riverside is a good example of, we need double ending for our podcast, because 95% of our listeners are going to listen afterwards, and that's the case for most live things. So 95. So you want that clean version. I don't want to have to worry about necessarily Wi-Fi. I want to be able to just to have a live version, and if it breaks up a little bit, it is what it is. But then I need that clean version. The problem is, we want to get, right now we're double ending with typically with Riverside. That's the most typical one that a lot of people are using. No one really likes Riverside. They just use it. and that's what, you know, like it, you know, like it's, the problem is it's not very stable. It's quirky. We have lots of connection problems. We have lots of hardware problems. We have lots of things that don't work about it, especially on PCs. It's quirky, you know, and it's kind of like, you know, I had a Trio before my iPhone. The Trio was just the phone that I hated the least. It wasn't the phone that I loved. Right. And that's the problem that Riverside's in, is that it's not necessarily a solution that everyone likes. All the browser-based ones are kind of a pain in the neck. And so you want to use Zoom, and you want to be able to have all the Zoom tools on the other end, which is the you know, to pull that in. You want to be able to pull those files back into something, you know, directly into something like Mimo Live, where I can have Mimo jump into the thing, and I have a live event, and I can do the thing, but I need that double end, you know, on the other end. And so I think that this is going to make it possible for a lot of us to make that happen. It's not as good as Zoom having just double ending, which is something they did promise a while ago. Anytime we talk about double ending, we have to remind Zoom that they did promise a double ending, I don't know, a year and a half ago. So 2 years, was it 2.5 years ago? Anyway, so I think that is what we want to keep on, that's where we really want to go, because then PC users can do it. But this is going to change how people send out kits. It's not going to change how people use it as a general, because there's still lots of people who use PCs and everything else. This doesn't fix that problem, but it does change what kind of kits get sent out. I can see lots of iPads getting bought just for this, for news, for other things, for podcast production. I think someone enterprising will think of we'll make a box that we can put it in that's very light, that we can keep on, that you can fold up, that it's got a thing in it that you just drop that stuff in. But you can't, a guy's showing something, but the problem is you can't mail that very easily. What I'm talking about is a little thing. It's got to be a box like this big that I can send to people for that one hit. That's the problem.
Marcelo.
Yeah, it's interesting that they're doing this with iPads, and I would like to see that on an iPhone as well, right? That would be kind of like a very good opportunity. I mean, we have that in the Voodoo Spatial Camera app. So once you connect external microphones, we detect them and we let you, switch them back and forth, which is okay. I think that we will be able to show an input now, I guess, with the new operating systems. We will check it. I'm installing that now, but I think it's a great move in the right direction. I also think I don't know if in the Mac will work the same way. Hopefully it should be like that. There's nothing better than recording locally and having those files as options. At the end of the day, that's what counts, right? When you want to produce content and you want to make it sound good. And I think that what Alex says is always these remote setups, not necessarily when you're in person, then that's different. But remote production is going to be very beneficial for that sort of thing.
Yeah, well, this is tied also to being able to select the input. So there's been a couple of apps that I have seen that you could select the front microphone or the back microphone or the external microphone that you've plugged in, but this feels a bit more OS baked into the OS, and because of things like Thunderbolt on the not just USB-C but a full Thunderbolt port, being able to plug in multiple audio input devices and being able to choose between them is a big deal. So it feels like it's building on that.
It's a great move.
Yeah, Guy.
Yeah, when they first came out with that ability to add a webcam, the first thing I did was run and grab the little Insta360 and plug it in, and the UVC input does show up, but the bummer was that it just would sit at full wide, so you couldn't zoom in or anything with the iPad version. When Alex started talking about kits, it just reminded me of what I'm using right now. So just to show you guys an all-in-one solution, Alex thinks it's too big to ship, but it does fit in a kit, and this would give you your monitor with your camera inside of there, and then you got your microphones and your speakers, and it's all in one. You do need a hub though, but we've hooked this up with an iPad mini, and we'll be showing it at InfoComm in that manner with the iPad mini and in Zoom. But this is a great announcement to be able to double end record, because we've been thinking about how do we do this in case there's Wi-Fi in a hotel or something like that, and we get some choppy breakup or anything like that, to be able to have that isolated record from the far end, especially if it can upload automatically at the end like Riverside. That's going to be really cool.
Can you record anything double-ended? I mean, I think isn't it?
The cool thing about it is that it's happening. What's cool about it? No. It's that what's cool about it is that it's happening from the camera to the device. So you can jump into Teams, Meet, whatever you want to talk back and forth live, but it's not using any of those things to do that. It's saying, it's kind of like Apple now has the camera control to, I can change my blur. I can add all those little effects that we all turned off eventually. I can do all those things. That's happening at the camera level. And so what Apple's doing is grabbing the camera data from there in the audio and piping and recording that before or at the same time that it sends it to Zoom or something else. And so it doesn't matter what you use to connect to somebody else. It's just something that happens. So you don't need FaceTime for it. It's pretty cool.
I was just double checking that it was video as well, because and it seems to be that it is. I thought it was only audio, so that's kind of a big deal for it to be capturing the video too. As long as
the question is this is where the problem is. Apple wants to keep things simple. So the question is like maybe you have video, but you're not. What one of the advantages of Riverside is it'll capture the audio and the video separately. So you get the audio that you need, and you can now it's just one extra step for people to go, oh, now I have to take the video, and that means that if they have a slow connection, it means it's going to take longer to get up. So they have to leave that iPad running for a little while before it gets on.
But is the audio app will record video? No, I don't think so, right? It's audio only on the, I guess, an audio recorder. Maybe they give you APIs.
No, I think the way that it's designed right now is it's going to record. I mean, we don't know until I test it, but I think it is. I believe it's going to record the video and the audio to a file as you're, if you hit save, it's going to grab both of them by default.
Oh, interesting. I thought that it was only audio. Well, that's a bit better.
That's good. I did too, Marcelo, and I just double checked, and it says it's video as well, but cool. We'll see what it's like. CJ?
The other thing about having the audio be at the audio routing be at the system level is it actually enables the iPad to be a really great meeting device, and now it's a good sound experience for the person on the other side. During COVID, I had played with putting an iPad on a desk mount tripod across the desk from me at head height. And what I realize now looking back at that is all I was doing was what a lot of folks do now with an Interatron, where they put a teleprompter in front of their camera so that when I'm looking at you in my screen, the perception on the other end of the call is that there's eye contact. Now that you can have the really great sound to go with that, it's actually very natural. And we've done this at a few meetings where we've had a remote participant come in and we don't have a conference room that's set up for that. I'll take the iPad and I'll put it on a stand, add a seat at the table, and put the screen at the height of where their head would be. And it's weird for the first 10 minutes. But as soon as the communication is easy back and forth, it actually becomes pretty powerful. So if the audio routing is at the system level, it's not too far of a leap to say, okay, we're going to be able to address this with something like shortcuts, with something like an accessibility feature, where I'm going to make sure that, okay, when you launch into this custom meeting app, it's going to automatically choose the USB microphone, it's going to automatically choose the better camera, and it's going to put you in a specific mode. And now that they've put the camera on the landscape side, on the top, it becomes a very natural sort of Interatron, especially if you're a few feet away.
Yeah, so Mac integration obviously is, we would love that too, but actually tvOS would be pretty amazing too, right? To have this all built into a Apple TV that you could send along. But Adam, I think you were probably working at Zoom at the time when they announced about double-ending recording, so you may want to excuse yourself from any comments. But did you have anything to share on this?
No, I mean, I think this is something like the podcasters are better suited to kind of respond to. I mean, I know they wanted to get the ability to record multiple audio streams at the same time or handle multiple audio streams. So I think this is maybe a step in that direction. I mean, there's no audio hijack on iPadOS 26, right? And I don't think that's even possible. But people want that because that's a very powerful application on the Mac. But at least having this kind of like local recording of the video and the audio, and then you have to go take that file and then upload it is going to be better than what people have been doing thus far, which is basically using a Mac or using an audio recorder and then taking the SD card and inserting the iPad and then uploading it.
I'm curious going to be what it does with audio, in the sense that, does it take stereo? For instance, I have or does it take multi-channel? One of the things that I have on my I have an ambisonic mic that does 8 channels, and my iPhone records 8 channels. You plug the USB-C in, and it'll take all 8 channels and record second order ambisonic to the iPhone through USB-C. And so there's a lot of the operating system can provide that. So the question is what happens to it, and how does it, if it's doing that local record, is it a single channel of audio, 2 channels of audio, up to 8 channels of audio? What does that look like? Because the iPad's capable of 32 channels of audio if you pass it to it. So that's the thing that I'm curious about. When you select that device, what can it do?
Yeah, there's a video on the WWDC developer website for this particular feature. It's called Enhance Your app's audio recording capabilities. And the chapter markers say like input route selection, which we've talked about before, recording with AirPods, spatial audio capturing, and audio mix. So I haven't had time to watch that video, but check it out, and that might answer your question.
Yeah, absolutely.
Very good. So I'm just looking at the other iPad specific things.
Not iPad specific, but just because you're looking while you're looking at it. The funniest thing in the whole thing, to me, the most humorous part of the whole thing was that Logitech was obviously not ready for this keynote. Whether they were definitely part of the conversation, and they definitely have been working with Apple. But wow, were they not ready? And this is going to be really interesting to see how this unfolds, because it's a huge mistake by this is something that kind of went under the radar. But I noticed it because we suddenly, while we were watching this, Apple said, now you can use Logitech Muse. And everybody went to search for like, what is that cursor? Like, what is that thing that they're using? And you couldn't find it on the web. You cannot find it. Just said, oh, you mean Logitech mouse? There's no Logitech Muse. Finally, I tweeted it. I was like, what is this? Because I put up the picture, or I don't know what you call it, X'd it. And I put this big arrow, like, no one, like, this isn't released yet. And someone sent me, there's like this 6-line. Oh, is it up now? Is it on their website?
Yeah, this is it. This is the only thing that
so the funny
is
thing
on their
was,
website
that was not
now.
on their website this morning when the keynote went out. So they were obviously, someone was behind, because there was like a 6-line press release to AP that was the Muse is going to be available sometime later this year.
It can be killing your business if you leak things like that early. I think it's like a security thing that they.
I understand, but they needed to do it. They needed to do it right after, though. They had to be like timed, like it was an hour after or something.
You give you some, it shouldn't be on the servers so that you mistakenly publish it.
Anyway, so it's finally up, but that is what a lot of us have wanted for a long time. And I did watch the video about making that possible, to build a 3D sculpting tool, and a lot of the libraries are all built in, like to Vision Pro, to do that. It is relatively, like, if you watch that video, it is relatively easy to build so what you're going to see with that tool and with other tools that are coming out, we're going to see this explosion. The other problem that Logitech's going to have is that the API is very wide open and easy to use. The technology is not that hard to develop, and there's going to be a lot of competition for that Logitech, device, I think, because it's really powerful.
So we'll move on to Vision OS now, and this is what we're talking about. So one of the things was what's the app that you can get the Formula One car and pull it apart? What's that called?
GeekSpace.
GeekSpace, thank you. You can also annotate in 3D. So Alex, what's the difference? Like, when I'm annotating and drawing lines in 3D and it looks right, what's the difference to then having, as you say, like a digitizer, which is the Muse?
Number one is you're gonna get haptic feedback. So you're gonna, when you push into it, it's gonna go, and it's gonna make it feel like you're pushing on a surface, and you'll be able to feel that surface as you go into it. Another thing is that it's like a paintbrush. I mean, why do you paint with your finger versus a paintbrush? You can kind of set something up where you are able to. The one of the hard parts with your hand is that your hand can get into weird positions. Like as we all know, with Vision Pro, you can't really eat with it. So I want to watch a movie and eat popcorn. I can't do both of those things. I'm back to a big screen because it's I need a popcorn mode on my Vision Pro, but everything goes haywire if you try to do that. And but having it be specific and being able to sit there and draw on it, I think it's different than going like this. It's just a different function of, I'm pointing at this thing and I want to do this thing. And I think that, and we did a lot of stuff with the Meta head, or the Oculus head up, or HTC, sorry. HTC and Oculus both had 3D drawing apps. and it'll be interesting to see what people do with them. They were a little clunky, but it was really cool when you were kind of drawing things out. And it's one thing to make clay and push into clay. It's another thing to be able to just start drawing something. And this technology, this is what got me the most excited about VR. 26 years ago, 27 years ago, SGI had a room that you could walk into with this giant cable that came down, and it was like a headset. You put this giant helmet on and you go, give me a sphere this big, and it would just appear. And then you could grab onto the vertices and pull them. And you were just like, in 5 years, we're going to all be modeling with our hands. And here we are, still trying to get back to that point 27 years ago or whatever. But of course, that was like a $4 million room or whatever, to do what that was doing. But the fact that I think that this drawing stuff is going to be really interesting. But what we are seeing is Apple, they also opened up, and I think Marcelo, I don't know how much you've seen yet, but it looks like there's more for developers to display some of the common, the Canon Insta360, GoPro 360 and 180, which is interesting.
Yeah, I think you can also now watch VR 180 content. I haven't tried it yet, but yes, you can. Also 360. That's interesting. And then, well, there are many other things in Vision OS, which I think it's good. Now you can scroll with your eyes, which is pretty neat. If you think about it, once you look down, it will scroll really well. If you look up, it will scroll back up, but it will be in like a spatial browsing experience, not with every app. It's cool. Okay. And yeah, but to Alex's point on the popcorn, I think it's important. So there's a setting when I watch a movie on the weekend, right? There's a moment. Yeah, this is a big tip. So you go to the settings, you go to eyes and hands, and you can set up only control the Vision Pro with your left or right hand. So you just cancel one of the hands and just use that for the popcorn. Huge tip.
Popcorn hands.
That's good. All right, noted.
That's it.
There you go. So the big question, Alex, are you ambidextrous with popcorn?
I'm not, but I can learn. I can learn. And then you have to do the big gamer thing where you learn how to do it with chopsticks. I think that's I've been noticing gamers have this thing where they use chopsticks for everything they're eating, so they don't get it on their hands. Right. Although mine's not very sexy.
CJ, how's your popcorn game? Has that been a problem?
The popcorn game has not been a problem. I do left hand, or I do my non-dominant hand as the pointer for Vision Pro, so that I can use the chopsticks to eat the popcorn. But also in other interface news, speaking of Apple kind of blowing the lid off of something, they announced that the PSVR 2 controllers could be used for the Vision Pro, which is a big deal. As soon as Sony starts selling them without the PSVR bundled with it, like they don't sell the controller separate yet. So if you want the controllers, you have to buy this whole headset. So that was another oddity. But my wife got a Meta Quest Pro, and I felt like that was the one thing that I was lacking, is that I've got this amazing Mac screen. I have this amazing way to experience spatial videos with using Stream Voodoo. I don't have the games are not there yet, because I can't be as precise as I want to be with the current control. So I'm excited that's another thing that they're opening up to.
Totally.
Yeah.
Another big thing on that was in these announcements was about guest mode and syncing settings back to an iPhone. Some of those things that are really like enterprise, very helpful for enterprise, right, CJ? And
yeah, for sure.
You've got that exact need, right?
Well, when the Vision Pro first came out, we bought 3 of them right out of the gate. Because we wanted to experiment and be on the cutting edge, but also when you're in an environment where training involves processing actual physical material, it's like every second of training is dollars going through a machine when you're in a manufacturing environment. So I like to think about it as, okay, if I can build some sort of module where you can get hands on a machine, so to speak, in a custom way, and you can take your first steps without putting actual material at risk, you have a way to accelerate somebody's ability to start making you money instead of costing you money. But there was no, you could do the guest mode, but it was always kind of a kludge to get it into a system where, okay, I'm going to set up 10 or 15 employees to be able to train on this device. Now we could have them on board with an iOS device, store their specific profile, and if they want to go through a training module of the machines that are in the factory that they're in, or on the machines that are in somewhere else, that's a process that's disconnected to them, I think it opens up a lot of options to get people experience that they might not have the time or the dollars to go out and actually get. So I'm super excited that there's more extensibility in the enterprise, not only for Vision Pro, but also when you look at the things that are happening with iPad. We have I mentioned it earlier, but we've got some new employees coming in who don't want a computer. They want to run everything on their iPhone, run everything on their iPad. So the more that all of these devices are more extensible, I think the more that it's going to help folks like me who are running in a hybrid Windows and Mac environment, bring that stuff in. So good stuff all around.
Yeah. I think probably the best pun that happened through the keynote, and you had to be really looking for it, but the pun was "for your eyes only." And I think that was brilliant.
I have to say, this feature is the most for your eyes only ever. Like we yes. talk about, but like when it says for your eyes only, this is, I'm going to show you video or images, or we're going to have a meeting, and the only person that can see it is you. Which is really the
person with your retinas.
I can see some enterprises doing this because there's not an easy way to capture it. It has control of what goes out of of how it's being shared out. It really is a closed system, and I can see military, government, enterprise, all kinds of applications where I want to show you something. You're gonna have to put the headset on, and the only people that can put that headset on is you. To do that.
There's stuff when I'm traveling on a train or on a plane and I'm working on something on my Mac that I'm not super keen about the folks next to me seeing what I'm doing. Just having that virtual display there and the screen's blacked out, but I'm not nervous. It's actually a very freeing from a privacy perspective, because I have that very, I'm in.
I can see a lot of people in New Mexico, using this. I was at a coffee shop one time in New Mexico, and I walked. It was just like a little coffee shop by the road, and as I was walking past, out of the corner of my eye, I saw this like notepad, and I knew enough about what I was looking at that I was like, that's like vision. Like that's like that. Like I was like, that guy's. And I was like suddenly wondering, like, why is this person putting nuclear calculations on their notepad as I walk by, and then I realized, oh right, I'm not that far from Lawrence Livermore, or not Lawrence Livermore, but Sandia, it's in Sandia, the facility there, DOE. And so I was like, but that person needed to have a headset. That's all I'm saying, is like that would have kept that. Yeah,
that would be better for them.
Well, and it changes the way that you fly, right? When you use the Vision Pro, flights change dramatically for everybody. Yep. I was flying back from Vegas for the Navy to New Jersey, where I live in it. And I was doing Vegas to Newark. I didn't feel the flight at all. I was with my MacBook Air M2 and the Vision Pro, using it, editing video, working on it. And I remember one person like looking back. I mean, this is my Vision Pro. Let me show you. Right. It has a case on it, so it looks like a Spider-Man in a way, but this, to protect the cameras and stuff and the display, right? But there was a guy that turns to me and he looks like me, and I can see him. He doesn't see that I'm looking at him, but he was like, "Yeah, this guy he really knows what he's doing." Right? I was all in, in my, I fly tourist, right? But it's kind of like feeling in first class, because your brain works like that.
There's two types of people that look at you. There's one that is like, oh, that's super cool. And probably the majority of people are not thinking that's super cool. Like, who is this dork wearing a snorkel on a plane?
The funny thing is, I don't care. I literally don't. I get all the food that I'm going to eat. I do all the things. Like, once I get on, I have to admit now, I just completely, I have a window seat, and I put it on, and I will not interact with anybody for the rest of the flight, which has been my kind of my state of being most of my travel years, is that I don't really need to interact. I don't really want any food or anything else. I'm kind of self-contained, and so it just made it more intense. Yeah.
And you choose the window because you don't want to go to the bathroom. You don't want to. People ask you to step up.
What
so
you
they
don't
can
want
go
to do with
the
your
bathroom.
headset is to put it on, is to have to get up all the time. Like that's the big thing.
No, not at all. Yeah.
So Marcelo, last word on Vision OS. Was there anything else that you were excited about that you may be able to implement into Stream Voodoo?
Well, ideally on the Voodoo Spatial side of things, right? We were coming up with a new player, right? We were working on the first version of the player. It's already out. We have some streams there that people can watch and enjoy music shows and different content curated, right? And I believe that this new UI and the liquid glass, of course, Vision OS already has a glass, but this is like an improved version of that. There is a new UI materials that I will be digging to see if we can get a better version of the app for that regard. But yeah, I think I really like the idea of, like I said before, that Apple is taking what they learned in Vision OS and just expanding that feeling to the rest of the platform. That unification of the platform, I think, is a great move. But yeah, I have not much time yet to go deep into Vision OS new things. But I believe personas are great.
Yeah,
I saw a couple of examples. It's a huge jump, so we may have to do another show with the personas.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. Yeah,
how that evolves.
Yeah, I'd like to do that.
So yeah, and I really like the widgets that you can place in the walls right now. Like I thought about those back in the beginning when I'm like, oh, when we are able to put these things, they will detect the wall and they will just stick to it, and they will be there like rock solid. And they don't go transparent like from the back. So if they're against the wall and you go around the wall, you don't see them. So you can see them when you are in the front. It's pretty mind blowing stuff. So
yeah, it is. That's super cool
to try. Yeah.
So not too much on tvOS, as in a couple of cool things. Profiles is a massive one. I mean, we've been wanting that forever. So a startup screen, choose which user's using it. That's amazing. So that'll be nice. It's particularly good, like for me with kids. You know, I don't want them to see all my movies or 100%. Whatever that I have access to. You know, so that makes it much nicer. The auto sign-in API stuff will be nice as well, to have all those apps just kind of sign in across all the devices. That's cool as well. I didn't even hear this one. It was probably Alex was probably talking about something else at the time in my ear. Shut up, Alex. I want to hear about the Apple Music Sing. I didn't even hear about this. It was like you can use your iPhone to sing and use that on Apple on
Wait, so
tvOS.
Because a lot of us have thought about this for a while. So how does this work?
iPhone as a microphone and visual effects.
That was not new. Yeah. That's not new. I think it was in the last.
So what does it do? So you can sing into your iPhone as a mic, and it goes through your Apple TV. Is that
Marcelo? Don't reveal that I'm using ChatGPT as my.
I think you can
the ChatGPT just hallucinated.
No, there's
are
you talking about the
party?
ad? Yeah.
Remote.
I don't know about that. I saw the ad from Michael Bublé. This musician. There's an Apple video that he sings to the iPhone, but I think it was based on iPhone 16. When the iPhone 16 Pro came out, the microphone allows you to record high quality audio from the phone without any headphones or anything like that. But that was just the iPhone, and I think that I had the keynote here playing back on the back end and the background, and I think that they added now the capacity for the AirPods Pro to become those professional microphones to use for recording purposes, which is
they mentioned that, so that takes us into iOS as well now. So they mentioned about higher quality out of the AirPods, which made it sound a little bit AirPod Pros, right? Made it sound a little bit more like AI enhancement, more so than the technical limitation of Bluetooth audio. that there is.
Yeah.
And so whether it's like cleaning it up afterwards or something in the process, so that'll be interesting to see. So then we moved down. Alex, your comment as we were going through all the messages and things was this is good for the kids. It keeps iPhone locked in for the kids.
Well, there's a bunch of stuff that we just kind of ignored. We just talked over it. I think that's probably why you missed some of the stuff, because we were just like, okay, I get it. So like the group chat wallpaper, some of the Gemoji stuff, a lot of the chat stuff is all. Polls. Yeah, where are we going to go and everything else. All of these things are things that I don't see. Here's the funny thing is that there is a world for the iOS and iPadOS that is above, I would say, above 60, 65 years old and below 20 that are highly interested in all the things that are connected to messages. That's been my experience. And then all of us in between, not as much. Like we're kind of like, oh, I got too many things to do. But the people who have a little more time to think a little bit more, they all want the better things in life, right? Of all these like crazy ways of talking back and forth. And so I think that, but Apple, as of the last poll that I saw go by, Apple commands 87% of the under 18 market. So of kids who have phones, 87% of them. So the Apple may have a small percentage, a half percentage of, but this is what worries everybody as they look down the path, because once you have kind of built yourself into any operating system, chances of prying you away from that becomes very low. Now that's not 87% worldwide. That's 87% in the United States. And a lot of it has to do with talking to my kids, a lot of it had to do with the blue bubble. I was like, is the blue bubble thing a real thing? I asked my kids and they're like, oh, it's no joke. Like if you have a green bubble, no, people were like, don't get into it. I guess it's softened a little bit, but they said for a long time, it was like, you just get left out of everything because you'd ruin their chats. So they just didn't want any green bubbles in their chats. And so that put an incredible, when we talk about like whether that made a difference or not, at that age, at an older age, it didn't matter as much, but at sub 18, when you're trying to fit in, the green bubble thing is really, it's again, talking to them recently, they said it's softened a little bit, but there's more people they know that have Android phones, but it was kind of, it was weird, like and not in a good way. I think, so they've gotten this huge foothold from that. And now they're trying to make sure that they're constantly putting the new things in, so you're going to see all the things you see in messages. That's all for kids. It's all trying to maintain that lead that they have in the sub 18 market.
Yeah. Hey, Adam, I'm just thinking about like mix effect, which is, all about controlling ATEMs, and then route effect, which is not all that old. To me, mix effect, I've used it a couple of times on a phone, but mostly on iPad. But route effect to me seems like that actually could be quite handy on a phone, just to be able to control video hubs and things like that. Is there? Do you agree with that? And then secondly, is there any announcements in these today that you might be excited about for the phone specifically?
So I think like if you're a video network engineer, having the ability to kind of like change your routes on your phone is a lot easier than doing it on like a desktop computer, because you're usually out and about and you got to like change the routes. I think what would be useful is to actually get a preview of what you're actually changing, because right now you just see like buttons and red buttons. It means it's active. They didn't announce it during the kind of the keynote or the State of the Platform, State of the Union, but there's a new multi-view API where you can display like multiple video streams at the same time. And so I'm curious to see how I might incorporate that into my apps. It would be great to have a preview of your video hub. Maybe you kind of specify one of the outputs.
Dedicate an output
as the as the kind of the multi-view or the view output, and then you can see as you change your things what you're actually seeing. Now, granted, you have to get that video signal into the phone, so we have to do something like, I don't know, NDI or some other type of streaming to get that signal into the phone so you can see it. that was, that's kind of my like marching orders, I think, to look into.
Is a multi-view API for iOS, you mean?
I think it's for all the platforms. I'm not sure if it was specific to a particular one. But again, if you go to
interesting.
There's a
that was in the
session
State of
video
Union,
called,
I guess, right?
I don't know if it was, but there is a session video called "Create a Seamless Multi-View Playback Experience," and learn how to build advanced multi-view playback experiences in your apps. So I'm gonna be looking into that.
The combination of talking about Blackmagic gear, but you get one of the ATEM constellations, the 80 input, 48 output, and then you're using route effect with the video hub control. Now you've also got a webcam output of that ATEM, which could go into a device that's now streaming it off to to your phone or something. It could make that whole thing really easy.
Yeah, certainly. That's actually what I can do in MixEffect, because MixEffect can take the webcam USB, and then an older version of an older feature was the remote web view, which took in a Video Ninja stream. And so since I've been out and about doing WWDC stuff, I've been demoing my app using that remote web view and Video Ninja. So I stream out the ATEMs multi-view, and then I can show them on my phone what's happening, and then I have some looping videos that are playing, so I can show them route effect and mix effect all happening at the same time. But it's kind of a hodgepodge of technologies. It's not like a turnkey solution that's easy, like stream this and then it's working. So somewhere I need to work on simplifying that for our users.
I tell you one thing, I'm not sure if you've got these virtual inputs. I know we're getting off topic, but just very quickly, one of the things I was thinking about is the ability to have, like a ATEM mini, and then dedicating one input off to a hub and off to a video hub, but then in MixEffect having virtual inputs and being able to just say, okay, I've got 20 inputs on effectively an ATEM mini. And whenever I choose, input 18, it automatically switches that and dedicates it to input number 4 or 8, whatever it was. So it could just change through all of those. You have got virtual inputs, but it's not quite that. Is that right?
Yeah, it's more you want to link a video hub to an ATEM. So, and since an ATEM is a video hub, you could theoretically link the two. So it's part of it is you change the output, you change the source on one of the outputs in the video hub, which is tied into the input of an ATEM, and then you want that label to change. So then when you're looking at MixEffect, it says it's not the Apple TV, it's now camera 4, right? And so that's definitely something I've been thinking about, and it's not related to any of the operating systems that were announced today, but it's coming.
It's cool. That's very, very cool. All right. So other stuff we saw, there was one other thing. Oh, the CarPlay. So the CarPlay thing is very interesting to me because wasn't it like 3 years ago or something, they did this massive announcement. It looked super cool. It was like every screen in the car was able to be CarPlay, and then it didn't seem to go anywhere. And it made it sound like any car could do it. They just need to implement it. And now it's like, oh no, only brand new, super expensive cars are going to have CarPlay Ultra, and whatever we announced before has gone away.
I think they haven't. I think it was Aston Martin. Is that right? And then there's also a Hyundai, I think, coming out that I was surprised they didn't show as well. And so I think they kind of showed both ends of it. I think that part of it was that releasing CarPlay while it was still rumored that they were working on a car was super problematic for the car companies, is because they're going to gather a huge amount of data from the car companies, and then they're going to have their own. They're going to be a competitor. That didn't track, So I think that was a real problem for Apple, and I actually think that might have been one of the contributing factors of if we don't know when we're going to get to the end of this car thing, let's just ditch it because it's affecting CarPlay, which is not really, it's not like Apple makes money on CarPlay. but it is part of the sticky experience of, you know, if you get a car with CarPlay, the chances of you leaving the Apple environment is very low, you know. So, you know, like, you know, and maybe your Android will have some other, it'll have some other version of Android as well. I do think that for some of these cars, I think the Aston Martin's a little bit of a, I think it's Aston Martin that has it. It was one of the, it was like Maserati or Aston Martin. Aston Martin.
Yeah.
It is, I think that one, maybe that doesn't really affect people, but on the Hyundai side of things, I can tell you that the next car I have, if it's not right now, it's going to be probably a Slate. Like the Slate truck is like I was slightly obsessed with. I already got the hat, and so I'm getting the T-shirt. Like I'm super, like it's the most me car ever, which is modular, inexpensive, just does what it needs, and I can make it whatever I want to make it. I'm just like my brain kind of is on fire with that. But if I didn't buy the Slate truck, or if the Slate truck included it, there's no chance that I would buy a car that didn't support CarPlay. And there's a much higher, because there's some cars now that are not supplying it. When someone says we're not going to support CarPlay at all, I'm kind of like, well, that's the end of that. Like I'm not, you know, I have no interest in your car, because it's so part of like, you know, my ecosystem, that there's no way that I would buy a car that didn't support CarPlay. But there's a much higher probability, because the problem, I think that what car companies are trying to get their head around is that no one cares about cars anymore. Like they don't, like it's their phone, their experience, what they're doing. The cars don't matter anymore to the next generation, and they don't. It's not a status symbol, like, you know, and it's not what it used to be. And I think cars are grappling with that. But you want to have it be, you know, that you want ease of use, and it has to be part of the ecosystem that you're working inside of. And so, car companies, when they say I don't want to have a CarPlay, it means that I don't want to have Apple users buy my car. Like I just, you know, like, because that's what you're, and that's not a, I think that they may find that that's not a great business model, because Apple users are, you know, easily separated from their money.
So they're saying CarPlay Ultra will be available for Aston Martin's core model lineup and will expand to include vehicles globally. But then it says it's available in new Aston Martin vehicles orders in the US and Canada starting today. Will be available for existing Aston Martin vehicles in the US and Canada.
Interesting.
Yeah, as an upgrade.
And it amazes me that they have a really flexible display system that made that possible. So it's
right.
Yeah.
There's no other. I don't see Hyundai mentioned at all here. So
I could have sworn that it was. Maybe it fell apart.
Yeah.
I thought that there was a high end one and a low end one that they not low end. I'm sorry if you were driving a Hyundai, but the high end one and then not a high end one that was there. And I speak as someone who has I have a 2014. My main driver is a 2014 Dodge Caravan. It's got some dents in the back of it. I plug into the headphone jack, you know, to use it, and I just use my iPhone or iPad as an interface. Like I don't care anything about. So I'm much more analog. And the reason I still have that car is it gets addicting to not have car payments. Like it's just really like when the car payments end, you're kind of like, oh, this is really like, there's just so much more money I have, you know? And so,
the truth is that's Alex's way of being covert. He doesn't want people to know how much of a big deal he really is. And so he just drives around there, doesn't bring any attention to himself.
I don't worry about people breaking into the car.
Is that MacBreak Weekly, Alex? He's driving in an Aston Martin?
I don't wash the car. There's like webs that have built up around some of the mirrors. I don't get rid of those either, because I park in places. I'm kind of like, I don't want anyone to think that this is interesting at all. You know, like, you know, and so. Yeah.
Speaking about parking, I believe
if I was a car manufacturer, I would be very concerned about CarPlay, because it's sort of Apple taking over the car and removing the car manufacturer from access to the customers. And I wonder what the contracts behind the scenes say about this, because I can't imagine that any car company will, you know, put the advanced version of CarPlay on their cars if that means that Apple gets to charge 30% of whatever, you know, the services the car maker wants to provide to the car owners is, you know, is going to be in the future, right?
I think number one is most of the car manufacturers aren't selling things to you. I mean, maybe they are going to sell some service to you.
Not yet. But they
want to.
I mean, they have to, and they want to, so.
They want to, but the question is this user-centric or is it, or merchant-centric? Like a lot of the stuff we're talking about, like let's open up the app store and let's do all these other things, is very merchant-centric. It's the merchants want to make more money. They want to have more contact. They want to have more control, but it's not user-centric. Like users don't want, like if I want to have a relationship with a developer, I want to be able to choose that I'm going to have that relationship with that developer. And there's ways that developer can do that inside the app. Like, hey, we've got a Discord, or we've got these other things, or check out these videos. And if I feel connected to them, that's their job, is to have me feel connected to them. So I give them the information. But as a user, when I buy an app on the App Store, by default, I don't want a relationship. I just want the app, and so like that's the problem. That's the user kind of view of that process. And I think that the car companies are the worst when it comes to this. I feel like they can't see in front of like all the profits they could make if they could just charge you a subscription to use your car, and I think that's why a thing like Slate is going to do really well, is because Slate's like, oh, there's no control. And I think Slate's going to be a huge wake up for, Jeff Bezos has often said, your margin is my opportunity. And I think he's about to do it at a very large level because he's the big funder of this. I think Slate is going to rip through the like it's going to make what Tesla did look like a walk in the park, because there's just so many people that just don't care about they just want a vehicle to get them to where they need to go. They just don't care about what that vehicle looks like. And they can make this one look like anything they want. But I think that I think that to understand where CarPlay fits into that is that I think that it depends on where the car company thinks it is in the food chain. If a car company is where you go, is where the car company, if they think they have leverage, they're not going to use CarPlay. If they think that CarPlay means that Apple users will consider them over other ones, and they're trying to break into the market or regain the market or gain some kind of market share, then they may do it because they don't have that leverage. And so it just depends on where I think Apple needed to get Aston Martin, but I think the most likely companies that are going to go after, that are going to put CarPlay in, are going to be the lower cost, very commoditized cars that they're trying to gain market share, and that's going to give them an edge over the ones that won't do CarPlay.
And an earlier Apple press release did state that it's coming to more brands, and newly committed brands include Hyundai, Kia, Genesis. Yeah. And so when you look at the luxury car market, Genesis they're buying their way into that market right now. They are giving a better value for the dollar than the Mercedes and the BMW and the Infiniti, because they're trying to break in, and now this Ultra is going to be another way that they're clawing into that. So I think it's pretty. So
it's exactly, CJ's illustrating exactly what I said, is like they're trying to get in. They're low on that in that food chain. They're trying to move up that ladder, and against their other competitors. If the other competitors aren't going to do it, they're going to do it, because that is one more thing when the person decides what car they want to buy.
Wow, we turned into This Week in Cars.
Yeah. Well, Apple did this 26, operating systems. It's like a car. You're buying a car, basically, right? The 2026 Kia, whatever. It's 2025 still, but. I do have a Carnival, though, Kia Carnival, and this is an app that I use to control all the features of my car, and I can lock it and unlock it and do many other things. And I also have CarPlay when I connect my phone to the car, and it works flawlessly. One wish thing that I have is another thing, right? But I want, when I'm parked, like if I can play a video on CarPlay, like why I can't, like I should be able to watch YouTube on the big screen when I'm parked. If you know that I'm parked and I can watch it, like Tim Cook should let us watch it. I said this because, I'm thinking like it's not Tim Cook, but you know what I mean. When somebody says, Tim doesn't like you to watch something during your driving experience, and I get it. But if I'm parked, then that would be very convenient, especially with the kids. I mean,
Yeah, well, in the back, I think that, controlling screens in the back would be pretty cool too. But so Chris Fenwick says CarPlay Ultra is probably like the ODB port with a fancy display. It could be in a way that it's
and there's some apps that let you have
access to all the data.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some apps that let you have that ODB port. You put a little thing on the bottom of it. It gives you a bunch of information. And I think people want that information about their car. Again, I think that car manufacturers, the big problem they have is that they're fading. Like my kids are not in any rush. They're my son's looking forward to having a license, but he's about to turn 18. And in California, they're kind of aggressive. They charge you a lot of money to get your license under 18. so and he's like, man, we'll get around to it, and my daughter is going to turn 16 and she'll eventually get one, but it's not like when we were growing up where the car was everything. It was your vision, thing. It's just that because the problem is that when you talk to kids, that means that every moment that they're driving the car, they can't be texting. And they're disconnected from their friends for the moments. Yeah. So as long as they're driving, they can't be connected to their friends, and so the car is kind of like is an enemy, of them being connected.
Here's another idea: car OS, and Apple just license that, and they can put the OS in every car that they want.
You don't even need the device,
Yeah, or make the iPad be installed on every single car, and off you go. Like the Teslas has these giant screens that are like big iPads on it. I don't know. Kind of cool, but car OS doesn't sound bad.
It could work. So the last thing was watch, and so there was a couple of cool things on the watch. There's some different gestures that you can do now with flicking your wrist and things like that. But the big thing was notes. I think notes on the watch will be kind of cool. It'll be handy to be able to talk and make notes and things like that. So that's great.
By the way, I'm going to use notes constantly. Like I'm ready to upgrade my watch and everything else. There's so many things when you're thinking about something, to be able to create a new note while you're out for a walk or whatever, and just be able to do it on your watch is going to be. It's all those shower ideas are now game.
Oh, because you're wearing it with your watch.
Yeah, or you're working out, or you're doing. I thought of something, and you want to write it down right then, and notes are going to let you do that.
Does Siri work okay in the shower on the watch?
I haven't tried. But I will try now.
We'll try now.
Yeah. Notes is one of those apps that you don't care about, but you use it a lot. Yeah.
You use it a lot. Yeah, exactly. Shopping lists and things. Let's go around the panel. One final last say, and also where people can find. If you've got a product or where you are online. So Marcelo, you can go first.
Yeah,
Final
sure.
Thoughts?
Well, we're working. I think it's great to be here and talk about these updates on the developer side, at least. So thank you for inviting us to be part of this. I'm really proud of. And I do have, Voodoo Spatial on the App Store. So if you want to check it out, it's for iOS as well. So you can watch the content there. And in Vision Pro, you can also see the player. Of course, the Voodoo Spatial Camera app for streaming spatial or high-quality video in one tap. That's also good. And then other live video technology stacks in streamvoodoo.com. That's where I'm at.
Great work. Thank you. And we definitely will do, when Persona is all working the next one, we can probably all get on the beta and then do another extra hours with just Personas. That'll be fun.
That would be fun,
Oliver, Oliver, we need to be able to let you go back to bed. Final thoughts?
Thanks for having me on this panel. One thing that I just noticed is that now all the sessions are online at the same time, which is something that I didn't expect. So I was quickly a little bit distracted looking at what goodies are out there maybe, so there's a lot of things that we would love to put into Mimolife, and if you want to explore Mimolife, you can do so by downloading a version of Mimolife on mimolife.com, and there's a license called the evaluation license, which is basically free and infinitely free, and it just has a little watermark and allows you to do all the things that Mimolife can do.
Very good. Adam.
Yeah, this is a great panel. Thank you for having me on here. I see, I look at the announcements from two perspectives. From a user, what interests me, and there's a lot of good things with the unification of the kind of the interface and the applications. I'm really keen on the Journal app. We didn't talk about that, but the Journal app coming to the iPad and the Mac is something I'm very much looking forward to. And from the development standpoint, again, I haven't done the recompile and build yet, but the changes that they've made don't look too hard. One of the things I was looking for coming out of WWDC is don't break my app and make it easy for me to kind of get something ready for day one when they release the new operating systems in the fall. So it's going to be a busy next few months for me, but I'm looking forward to doing that. And for people to find out about me, you can just go to my website, tow.com, TOW.com. And then I make the Mix Effect app and Route Effect, Message Filer, and that Wipe My Screen cleaning game. So just check them out on my website.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. CJ.
I'm recovering from just the awe of having a 3-letter .com domain. That is very impressive, sir.
That is impressive.
I registered that in 1995. So back when registering domain names was free.
The vision. My big thoughts as a takeaway from WWDC this year, and we didn't get to talk about it a whole lot, but I think I'm the most excited for having Apple first-party integration with Claude and with ChatGPT directly into Xcode. I've used just the Works With Xcode feature that's in ChatGPT now. I've made 2 little baby apps. I've never programmed anything before last year. So I mean, there's the gentlemen on this panel, Oliver, Adam, Marcelo. They have more developing talent in their little pinky nail than I can ever hope to have. But I've actually been able to deliver some things, and I'm excited at the opportunities that are there right now for someone who doesn't know what they're doing to start to get ideas on paper. So it's very, very exciting stuff. And if you want to see more of me, check out Office Hours Friday mornings, where we talk all about your infrastructure and IT stuff. Thank you.
Good work. Thanks, CJ. And Guy?
Yeah, I think the big takeaway for me was the LLMs and the future of that being on the device itself. If we're going to push the size of these things up and have a phone that's like an 8 terabyte phone, or how big are these LLMs going to be, and how fast are we going to get with these processors, these mobile processors in the future, to where we don't have to call out and go online. We could be offline or on a plane or something and not need to reach out or use the internet. And if it happens faster, because it doesn't have to go anywhere. That's super exciting, and we don't have to pay for that NVIDIA token processing. All of that. Somebody's got to pay for this stuff at some point. It's cheap right now. I mean, $20 a month, or some people using VO, I'm hearing, are racking up $500 per clip videos. But I'm excited about the hardware. Like, show me the new phones and show me where the LLMs are going. So, and then you can find me just on LinkedIn. Basically, I'm on Office Hours quite a bit and doing a lot of different marketing for different folks, and TD and camera operator.
Nice. Thank you, Guy. And Alex, was this a good primer for Mac Break Weekly tomorrow?
Yeah. So I'll be talking about this all again. What's great about doing this on Monday night is with all of you is it lets me think through these things, get the great view from some great programmers that I use. What's great is that I use Stream Voodoo's spatial streaming. I use Mix Effect, and I use Memo Live. So it's all when we thought about what
Worlds
programmers,
collide.
I wanted to really have ones that I actually use their software, and I use all of their software. So so it's great. But getting their input and getting Guy and CJ and Grant your input, I think, will make me even more thought out than I normally am, which is not very much for Mac Break. But so this is really good for me to have like a actually have to think about it and process it and talk to all of you about it. I think that it's going to make a huge difference. So I'll be on Mac Break tomorrow at 11 a.m. and we'll do it again.
So one thing we didn't talk about, which is kind of surprising for us, is any of the production aspect. And I just figured you'd probably be able to talk about that maybe tomorrow on the morning show. You might look at some production stuff. And you, Alex, are you thinking you may break some of it down? Not necessarily tomorrow, but sometime.
I think we'll definitely talk about it. I think that the short version of Craig's question for me was that I felt like they have gotten too aggressive with what they think they can do with an iPhone. So I feel like they're doing green screen keying with the iPhone, and I don't think it's working. Like, to be honest, I just don't think that. I think there's a bunch of things that are going on there with especially when they're in that little weird space that I don't even know where. I was told that it is actually built, but I haven't seen it. So there's like this little space that they're in, that it actually exists somewhere, but it doesn't feel like they're actually there. It feels there's something wrong with the tone mapping or the composite or something that isn't working. And I feel like they're committed to, that we've got this pre-record, but we're still doing all these wide shots. And I know that that's probably a nod to we're on some kind of virtual stage, but I don't find it pleasurable to watch. I think you can have close-ups of people. I think we need to give up the idea that we're doing, in my opinion, the next step for Apple is to give up that this is any kind of keynote presentation and just make me a 2-hour video about your stuff. Do it however you want to do it. But the idea that they're holding on to this construct of presentation that I don't think is necessary anymore. And I think it would be a better show if we just made it a show.
Interesting. We've got. There's plenty more discussion to have there.
We'll talk about that probably more tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. But thank you, everyone, for all the panelists. It was an awesome discussion. A special thank you to the back-end crew that were working on this with Taylor and Alan and Laura and Peter. And a special thank you to 1F Jeff, who had to sit and listen to 2 hours of Macintosh and Apple and all of that stuff. All I can say, Jeff, is take a Pepto-Bismol and go to bed, and I think you'll be all right after listening to all of this. And so we'll be doing this again next week, extra hours. You can catch us at the same time, 6 o'clock Pacific. But every day in between is the office hours main show that happens at 7 a.m. Pacific. So you can join everyone then. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.